There was recently a discussion sparked, particularly in the League of Legends community, over whether player salaries should be a matter of public knowledge, whether transparency in this respect would help players, allow them to negotiate better deals for themselves, etc. But since the primary topic was just about salaries becoming public, and then as a result that being a kind of transparency for the orgs so people know what's going on, there was a follow-up discussion that happened, which wasn't just a corollary side discussion, but actually seems to have taken some of the momentum and some of the good points of the salary issue for players and diverted it over into this other area, where now what people are discussing is, but you can't just publish salaries unchecked and willy-nilly. What you need to do is, if we're going to publish salaries, then we need to also have all these organizations reveal their revenue. Like, we need to know what money they're making and where they're making it from, and which specific sponsors paying how much to them. Now, the big problem I see with this issue, first of all, I think it draws a false equivalency in terms of the need and usefulness of that kind of transparency. Like, I don't know anyone who was just saying transparency is de facto the right thing and is a good thing no matter what, under all circumstances. I mean, just because you want transparency in player salaries for esports orgs doesn't mean you want transparency in the sense that there's video cameras filming you while you fuck your wife or husband, whatever way you might go. I don't know anyone who would think that's an automatically obvious scenario. So obviously we're talking about, why is the transparency important? So the reason why having salary numbers be transparent in esports is because, first and foremost, most important point, right now, most esports players don't make enough money. Most of them don't make enough. Some of them are living below minimum wage in some countries. Admittedly, in League of Legends, a lot of them are making minimum wage or above now, which is good. But a lot of them aren't making a good living, yet they're some of the best in the world at what they do, and they're devoting massive amounts of time to their job, much more than a 9-to-5 job. So the reason why salary numbers being transparent in esports are good is because we help those players immediately start to solve that problem, that they're not getting paid enough money, some of them below minimum wage, and they're putting in massive amounts of their hours, devoting all their time, so they can't be working on a side craft, and they're not getting enough money for it right now and can't build a future from it. So by making the numbers transparent, we allow them to negotiate for better contracts, to understand their value, which is obviously a side point of that. We allow other teams to know that they're available and that they're actually within the ballpark, even though they might not have understood that. They might have thought this guy already gets paid enough there, therefore he's not going to leave his team. We do all these things which help out the player get out of that very immediate and very important and poor situation that he's in. Now, if we make revenue numbers transparent, first thing we do there is fuck over all the best businessmen in the industry who've built up an org, who've done it organically, who've built great sponsor relationships, who've gradually been able to increase the amount of sponsor money they make by offering extra things, building up a relationship, showing they're trustworthy, delivering results. All we do is fuck those guys over, but what is the upside? Now, as far as I can tell, the only upside is that then some random person on Reddit won't say, yeah, but that team pays more, but that's because they also make more. Like, that's the only upside I can see. There's no actual benefit to the player, to the org, as far as I can tell in terms of the revenue in that particular sense. Because it's not obvious that a player can just ask for more money if his org makes more revenue. Nope, not the case at all. If they run as a sensible business, there might not be more money there. It might not make sense to pay that player more. He might explain, well, look at your market value and look at how much this other team are offering you. I'm actually paying you more. Now, I'm going to spend this other money elsewhere. And guess what's a business? Now, here's the thing. It's not only the case that it's not going to help, it will actually hurt, in my opinion. I think having revenue numbers all just be known publicly will literally hurt the industry and cause either a total lowering of the amount spent by sponsors and people investing, when those sponsors and people investing, money men, see that they might be able to get something similar, but for a little bit more of a bargain elsewhere at another organization. That'll either happen, or some of the lower organizations will attempt to use the fact that they now know and they've got to skip out the part where they have to be good businessmen. They get to skip that part out and go, oh, well, this guy gets paid something, I'll ask for a bit more. And so it'll either go, sponsors lower the money, or everyone in the industry will now try and gouge the sponsors. And remember, we're not talking about players trying to gouge orgs. That's not what it's about here. We want players to get a good income, to at least be earning livable amounts, to at least be making good money and having the chance where if their org won't pay them good money, someone else can pay them good money. That's not the benefit that you're getting from the revenue numbers being known publicly. there's also the suggestion that I've seen made by a number of people, actually, that one of the reasons why you need to know the revenue amounts is rather than just look at the overall amount that the players paid, we need to base the amount that the players paid on the percentage of the revenue made. So on the most low-level context, on the most least damning context of that people are implying, would just be that we need to know for context. Like, we don't want someone to be like, oh, he's paying a bit more. Wow, he's fantastic. Oh, wait, he makes loads more money. This person's paying a less percentage more. But some people also were implying it as though it means if you make more revenue, you should automatically pay more salary. Now, first of all, I think the total amount paid is the most important figure. Like, for the base player, remember, this is the whole discussion, the impetus is that the players don't make enough right now. That's it. It's not about making the whole industries that everyone knows what's going on and everyone knows everyone's secrets. There's a sinister motive if that's what you want to happen and that's what you were suggesting was ever happening disingenuously. But the key thing is, for the player, all that matters is the base amount. If your organization is small and you're only paying this player $3,000 a month salary, and my organization's huge and I'm only paying him $5,000 a month salary, so I'm paying him $2,000 more. My $2,000 more is better for the player. It doesn't matter if it turns out I have 10 times the revenue you do and your 3K is actually a massive amount of your revenue. That's irrelevant to the player and the player's well-being. The logic that these big teams should mismanage their budget in the way that some of the lower level teams do is ridiculous. Because what's funny is the lower level teams are going to tell you, oh yeah, but these big teams, they've got so money they can afford to pay these. Look, I have to pay this to compete. No, you don't. No, you don't. If the big teams pay a set amount, right, so they get the best players, and then they've got all the best players, and now you're signing other players, but you saying to the player, I don't actually have that amount. I mean, mate, you can privately reveal to the player if you want some concepts about your revenue streams. Look, I don't have the same sort of sponsorship they do. This is what I can pay you now, so that in a kind of similar proportion to those bigger orgs, I'm paying you a reasonable amount, but I'm also building for the org's future, and I'm allowing things to be set up properly, and we're not that big an org. Instead, every little org wants to pretend they're a big org, and they're like the little scrub who's in gold, who believes he should be a platinum player. Like, oh, yeah, but this is so unfair. I'm just being held down, and if people saw my true level, if I just had the same, and if I knew how much he gets from Nvidia, then I would be as big as him, and then I would be able to pay the money. And I am paying almost as much money, but I'm paying like massively over the odds based on how much I can afford from my org, and I'm actually leveraging my whole org's future and gambling just to get a better player now. Accept the way you are or get better at business. I don't understand what they're crying about in this particular sense. So the notion of massive org like TSM should go ahead and gamble a huge amount of money that they don't need to on a player, as opposed to just pay more than this little org, is ridiculous. I mean, that doesn't make any business sense whatsoever. For example, if you business guys know about business, where's the market pressure for people to overspend in this respect? In fact, what's funny is salaries being known publicly will actually help some of those big orgs end up spending more money anyway, because then the players will see what people make, understand their value, and then the big orgs will naturally have to spend a bit more anyway. So actually you're going to get helped out by, in that sense, by that anyway. You can't just only take the negative. That scrubs on Reddit will be like, oh, you don't pay that much though, are you screwing them over? You have to take the other side. It's actually going to hurt your competitors a bit more. It's going to help you in that respect. I think that this is all. So as a result, since the players, by the way, will get more money from these big odds, that's again also actually helping this fucking problem. So one of the things here is, I think a large amount of why this conversation got derailed is that people are just scared of the public perception, what people on Reddit will say, which doesn't make any sense, by the way. I mean, if you are literally a poor org, or a new org, or just some org, team is what I mean by org, in case anyone hasn't noticed that yet, who's just unable to pay better amounts while running your organization. You notice I didn't have an end to that sentence. That was the end of the sentence. Because, I mean, what would the end be? So I'll say it again, okay, ready? If you're literally an org that is poor or new or just unable to pay better amounts while running your organization, then I don't see the problem with it. There we go. How about that? I mean, you might think, oh, but why? But people will judge me as a poor org, or as if I'm new and I haven't got the same responsibility. You haven't. You are. I don't know. The problem. They'll think that I just can't pay as much as others. You can't. I mean, what's funny is you're acting like it's a public perception that's wrong that you're upset about. Well, no, this is actually entirely correct public perception. People will have it nailed as to what you can afford. Now then, There might... It's true. On the other hand, they might judge you unfairly in the context of VC-funded teams, because if they don't know that this team's got venture capital money, that they've just been given a sack of money and they're spending it willy-nilly and they haven't organically had to grow that and show that it's worth something, and they can just spend as much as they want and go and gamble, essentially, then yes, people will initially, sometimes incorrectly, judge you against that and think that you're just a skinflint or you can't afford the players for some reason. Here's the thing, though. That doesn't make sense long-term, because, okay, so idiots in the public will think you didn't make a good deal because you didn't overspend like the VC people. But first of all, either players will sign with that VC team in the short term for the money and then get burned, like eventually the team can't pay them anymore, or the team doesn't have money left at the end and goes broke, or the team doesn't have money left but it's still a big industry, so gets bought out, in which case they continue to make money and new people come in and gamble, in which case I don't actually see the problem in that particular respect. You just can't pay the money. Or these orgs will fail eventually, and people will see that those orgs weren't the right way, and you will be hailed as the person who did it the right way, who gradually built your org up, who had a sound business plan, and actually in the long run, it will work out for you. Look at who is making the suggestions that these revenue figures be made public. I would break it down into two sets of people. There's people from small orgs, in terms of revenue made, and these are the people who kind of I described before, they're just not good. They're either poor, they don't have much money, they're new, so they're just mad that they haven't had a chance to get more money, or they just feel like they've been held back, so they're just mad, and this is a way to kind of strike at the bigger orgs. We should all have to reveal our revenues numbers. So again, they're just shit, so get over it right now. I mean, you just step your fucking game up. Then there's the people from medium-sized orgs who have a bit of money and actually have probably done some good deals, and you probably think of as good teams, but maybe you just don't know that they're not the rich orgs, and they're just really upset with the venture capital funded people who can outspend them, admittedly, because those venture capital VC funded teams don't have good business plans in general and are overspending in some cases for no good reason. Just because it's like, well, we have the money, haha, this will never run out, right? We'll continue getting more of this, right? This is how you do, right? Yeah, well, like I said, those will most likely fail. So I don't really know what there is to complain about. They're taking their chances and they're going to fail from those chances. You're not. Okay, great. We'll continue your life. What pisses me off about this whole discussion is that what was a really important and quite critical and vital discussion about player rights in terms of salary and how they can negotiate and getting around some of these poaching problems has then... Remember, players are the people who make the least money on average in this industry, has now been derailed and diverted into a way for, first of all, venture capital people to wave their dick about how much they're overspending, and then small orgs just bitch and cry and go, it's unfair, it's unfair. There are people at bad organizations who run them who don't make much money. I'll say that. I'll explain that for some people. That's why they might be upset by this salary issue. But that's because they either suck at business, so they can't get enough money to make themselves a salary, and have had to spend a lot of it on players because otherwise they'd be nobodies, or it's just too early and they haven't yet developed into an org where they're going to make money in the future. They will make their money on the back end, and on the other end of it. I don't know why they're crying about it now. Yeah, on the back end's the final way to say it. This reminds me of political discussions that seem to happen in America, where what happens is whenever you have a political discussion and the topic of socialism comes up, people always present it as though like, oh, but if you do one thing, then that must mean you want a world in which that philosophy is applied on every single level, in every single case, and for every single possible scenario that could arise. So if you want socialism in this area, you must want socialism in every single area. No, that's a ridiculous assertion. It's actually quite immature, quite naive way to look at the world. You can have different approaches for different topics and different problems and different areas. That's the beauty of life. So as a result, the reason why socialism can be good for medicine and healthcare in a way is because we're trying to save people who might die without healthcare, or who are in very low health and won't be able to get themselves out of a bad situation because they're at the bottom of society. So it can be good sometimes to have programs in place or policies which embrace a type of socialism to help those people, because they have extremely pressing, life-threatening, important reasons as to why they need help right now and they can't get it under the current system. That doesn't mean, because we have those policies in place there, that we then have to in some way go and take all the money from rich people that they've earned and give it to lazy people who have a bit of money and just sit around and do nothing. There's no direct connection there. Anyone who makes it, be very suspicious about why they're doing that, because either there's some kind of psychopathy going on, that they think that that's really the way you have to think about the world, or they're disingenuous in the way they're presenting the argument to you and trying to create this false dichotomy. It's one or the other. It's not. You can apply the different problems can be solved by different solutions, obviously. Now then, what about your money and where it's coming from? I tell you what, if you played Alpha Draft, Fantasy Esports, you could be making money there. No one would ever ask how much it was. No one would ever ask what you did to get it. Everyone comes in with the same amount of money, $50,000, to buy a team of League of Legends players. It's all just skill-based. It's not entirely. There's obviously some luck, but in general, skill will out, much like in business to a degree.